really interested to see what he brings to Grandmasters because, again, as I mentioned, we've both been talking to him a fair bit recently, and one of the things he said recently that really stuck with me is that the way he consistently beats people is that he just trusts the data in a way that a lot of other people don't.
Yeah.
And he feels that, you know, other people are too stubborn and they'll see, like, for example, Libram Paladin, I think, is a great example of this, right? Is a deck that is consistently very, very high on HS replay stats throughout certain metagames, but has this kind of competitive stigma around it where a lot of the players don't trust it. We talk crap about it a lot when it shows up on stream, all that kind of stuff. Furyhunter is very much arguing that, like, that large collection of data that you have should be trusted, should be analyzed, and should be exploited. And that's what he feels like he does better than everyone else.
Well, let's see if it pays off on his first match on stream. He is going to be on that Owl Warlock versus the Burn Shaman from Casie. We did see Casie, I believe, keep hold of that Cavern, a card that can absolutely wreck games on its own, sometimes with the help of a cheeky Bloom, of course. And we did see, just as a quick note as well, the Control Warrior, or the Kaz Warrior, banned away from Furyhunter in this match. And it's a pretty interesting ban we'll dive into maybe a little bit later on.
I'd just like to point out, Fury would like it to be made very clear, based on his gestures there, that he's thinking really hard about lots of decisions already on turn one of this game.
And prayed before the game began, if you call that.
I love visible thinkers. Like, it always reads to me as, hey, everyone, look how smart I am. Look at all these things I'm considering so early in the game. I'm just kidding. I love you, Fury.
Well, that's the frustration, isn't it? Like, normally, if I was doing that, you'd laugh and everyone would...
Yeah, I would call you out immediately. Yeah.
But, because we know Furyhunter's smart, so it kind of doesn't work as well.
Yeah.
Here, though, Fury going to be, as is often the case with this deck, just digging and digging and digging to try and get the weapon, right? Just want that Rune Mithril Rod to be able to reduce this hand, because already the hand's not looking too terrible. Plenty of card draw, a sprinkle of removal. The Nulls, one of the newer additions to this style of deck, are absolutely fantastic because it allows the Owl Warlock player to be able to actually remove minions and sometimes even value trade and stick things on the board themselves, something that Owl Warlock historically has not been strong at doing in any way.
Probably one card too late for the ideal there for Furyhunter, but still I think we'll be happy to have the rod in his hand now. Was probably looking for it just off the top that turn, because that way he could have just coined it out. There wasn't an overwhelming amount of pressure on the other side, nothing that he couldn't rebound from with a nice discounted rod hand, but does have it, can now set up a plan, can get that finger out again and start planning back and forth as to then these next few turns are going to look like with that rod involved. Yep, there it is.
Yep, it's important to note as well, of course, that Casie is not playing Viper in his list. So, and I feel the need to point that out because I feel like every deck we've seen today has been playing Vipers. It's such a common tech now in almost any deck that you would normally expect it. But we saw earlier in APAC how decimating a Viper can be in this deck because it's so reliant on the rod to go off. Whereas Furyhunter can at least rely on it having the ability to go off. Whether he survives long enough for that to be the case is arguably a different story, Sol.
Wait.
Counting lethal?
Yeah.
I thought I'd talked long enough for you to have counted it because I saw the bloom and the overdraft. I was like, Sol's all over this.
Yeah, no, it was 12 one way, then I was like, way, then it was 12 the other way as well, so it didn't really help, but yeah. Man, that's so much damage, though.
Yeah, if anything, it's the odd thing about this, it looks like lethal instantly, but then you realize the overload is actually quite limited, right? It's not as much as it could be because you're used to seeing these turns like this kind of burn with zappers being played, right? Which normally adds to the damage a lot. Wait, is it lethal now after me saying that? We just not count overload?
I didn't count the bloom overload, right? So this is 3+4 off the lightning bloom. Yeah. This is. Oh no, because you can't get the bloom in as well. So he's just going to dunk it now and just set it up for the following.
Right. Okay.
This makes sense. Yeah.
I was going to say, like, I was looking at it, but then I was like, I'm sure this doesn't work because he can't push the damage.
Yeah. So you could either go like Serpent Shrine, Bloom, Bolt, Bolt or Bloom Bolt Overload, but they're kind of the Overdrive, yeah, but they're very, very similar in that situation because of the amount of overload that you're actually getting. But I do kind of agree with the idea of just dunking the damage. It really limits the ability to do things like backfire and life tap in this spot, which means that Furyhunter is going to be very limited in how he can navigate his way out of this. Tamsin costing 2 here is a problem because that means you'd only be able to play 0 mana spells alongside it, although he does have the coin, which means coin Drain Soul is available at the very least here.
And you can talk about all you want that how much you could argue that Furyhunter might need Tamsin for the double combo. Well, not if he's dead. So it won't matter. So the fact that he does have access to that Tamsin coin drain. So he's got drain, drain, coil, coil, basically, right?
Yes. No, only 1 coil because the coil wouldn't.
Oh, sorry, drain, drain,
already
coil.
Cost 0.
Yep. Okay, this leaves 2
coils and coins 1 drain. Yeah, this works out better, I think, because he actually gets the full board clear with the School Spirits this way, which he wouldn't have done going about it the other way. So I think this does work out a little better for him in the long run.
Yeah, he also... Oh, never mind.
Oh, Frostbite off the top.
Wow.
Easy win for Casie in game number 1. Just picking up all the burn, launching it face. Deliberated for a long, long time over that turn previously, where we all got in a bit of a mess in terms of the lethal damage, but Casie was able to find the route through very nicely. Again, I do like Furyhunter's decision there. It would take me a few seconds to really go back and break it down properly, but I think I was too tunneled on the Tamsin, and him weaving the School Spirits in there instead allowed him to clear like an extra 3-4 or 3-2 off the board, which then just makes up for the healing that you would have got off the extra Drain Soul anyway, right? Which is a big, big deal.
And also as well, it puts fragments in the deck, right? So if you do survive the following turn, you've not only got potential heal, but quicker cycle as well. So yeah, I mean, Casie grabs the win there. Pretty impressive that he pushed as much damage as he did, but it paid off. And that's one thing you can force this Owl Warlock into, is awkward spots where they've not had a chance to really get cooking, right? And cards like the Cavern is such a big deal on that, because yeah, it doesn't sound like much on the first turn you play it. 4 mana 3/4. Okay, but then when you realize that is banked for then more turns to keep creating these additional minions, and because they're not created together, it means killing them off. You need spot removal every single turn for 3 turns. Like, that is just hard for most decks. And
also, with Wildpaw specifically, the fact they have freeze is so clutch, because otherwise you just find yourself getting overstatted every single turn, right? Like, it's no good playing a 4 mana 3/4 into a board that already has a 4/4 on it, and then the 4/4 just kills your 3/4, and you spawn another 3/4 for free the next turn, but there's still a 4/1 that kills your 3/4. Because they freeze, you don't actually lose any tempo in that situation, so it actually ends up just being so much compounding interest in how much pressure you're putting in on the board, and then the combination of that plus just drawing every burn spell in his deck back to back to back, Casie just got to skip the entire freeze portion and just straight burn out his opponent.
Yeah, and now we're going to look at Casey's handlock again. We've seen a lot of Owl Lock, I feel, today across both regions, but now we are going to move over to this handlock. It's very, very similar to how it's been historically, of course. Dreadlich Tamsin was a fairly newish addition, but I think the biggest impact card is actually Showstopper now, right? Being able to silence the board and be effectively immune to any of the free shenanigans that can go on, especially. Whether that's against Mazaki Mage, whether that's against the Shaman, of course, as the main 2 culprits, is a big deal. But it is going to be running into this Fell Demon Hunter from Furyhunter. That's just frankly a lot of hunters. But what do you have? What do you make of this matchup, Sol, specifically? Because it's not one we've seen too often.
It's not, no, and honestly, handlock a little bit out of fashion right now when it comes to competitive play. More people do tend to go for that LTK kind of style, especially with the recent innovation of the Knolls coming into it as well. I think that's really reignited a lot of people's interest in the matchup. But this is kind of a classic one from back in the day, again, where not really too much has changed, where if the Fell Demon Hunter can stabilize, generally they just have too much damage for the handlock to be able to cope with, right? They do so much damage to themselves, drawing cards and tapping. Yes, they can restore some of that over time, but if you're just taking chunky hits of 8, 10, 12 damage from the hero swinging at your face every single turn, you can't really withstand that. So the way you win is just doing what most people do very well against Demon Hunter, and it's just getting big threats down quickly. Again, I'm going to say the words again, Magtheridon has a huge impact on the matchup, particularly in this one. I think something that you'll see people do very often is just play Magtheridon on 4, regardless of whether they intend to clear a board with it or not in the near future. Because once that Magtheridon's locked and loaded and in play, suddenly Casie, in this case on the Warlock, has to think twice about playing a Flesh Giant, about playing an Anetheron, because you're playing it into a board where your opponent is at least bluffing the idea that they can just clear it up using the 1/3s. So it's a very, very impactful card to be able to pick up early here for the Demon Hunter.
Yeah, I do think here, though, with double Flesh Giant, I don't think there'll be many things stopping Casie trying to play these bad boys out nice and early. Apart from that, Glide from Furyhunter. Go on.
All right, I was just going to say, I did set myself a personal challenge coming into this week, was to talk about things that were relevant in Demon Hunter matchups that weren't Glide. So when you asked me that question, I was like, okay, can't talk about Glide. But I really wanted to say, what's really going to matter here is that Furyhunter just has a Glide on the far left of his hand, which is going to make things much, much more difficult.
Yeah, just rename the class. Call it Glide.
Demon Glider.
Yeah, there you go. Perfect. Though Casie did get a giant back, got an Anetheron as well, like not the end of the world in regards of what his hand looks like now. Furyhunter, though, on his side, isn't it? It has a good amount of draw, but nothing to actually do.
Yeah, I don't see anything better than this. Perfect efficiency in terms of just drawing the cards and discounting the hand again here. Gets the second proc off on the quest. Moderate discounts at best. Arcanist Fell Barrage is a decent one to discount for sure, because that can be a clean answer to like a solo big threat on board, for example, or just a ton of damage to face.
It's also kind of hilarious that these 2/2/1s are just beating Furyhunter up.
Yes.
Like, he just didn't kill them. Like, how does this Fell Demon Hunter not kill 2/1/1s on the board? Another tricky turn, isn't it? Does have the Aldraki Warblades as well as the Furies as well. If Fury... Oh, this is getting too confusing. Furyhunter's playing Demon Hunter that plays Furies in the deck. But he can...
At some point, Furyhunter on Demon Hunter could be hunting for Furies.
Yep. Can heal for a good amount whenever he wants to. He's just got to toe the line of when he wants to, right? Because there's still the fear that just a Battleground Battlemaster comes down and he could just be dead.
I think we'll see Fell Scream Arcanist Fell Barrage here. Yeah, just to clear everything up nice and clean.
Just remove it so you don't even have to think about those outcomes, right? Just get it gone. Forget about it.
Yeah. And it is crucial with this deck just finding the right turns to release the pressure, but what I mean by that is Furyhunter here really wants to jam Kurtrus soon. So he's choosing the turn before he wants to do that to actually create his big high tempo turn where he clears the board. And now there's just a 5/3 sat on the other side of the board, which he feels like he can get away jamming the Kurtrus into, especially since he can just drop that Fury and clear it up.
Oh, okay. I was actually wondering whether he'd go Fury first to trade it, and then just equip the Warblades after.
I could see that, yeah.
I guess he has a second set of Warblades, right? It's just you've always got to think about how much mana everything's going to cost, especially when you're trying to play such an aggressive curve like this from Fury, where, for example, he could play Jace on 8, right? But he can't do anything else that turn, so... Anetheron coming down, but there is a 0 mana Fury number 2, and there is that Jace, and there's a Fell Barrage. He just does it. Play as much as possible, get Jace down there, and just see what happens.
That's a Raven line if I've ever heard one.
Bet it would work this once.
Just do the thing, play the biggest card, see if you win.
That just sounds like Hearthstone to me, Sol. What are you on about?
Ooh. Arcanist Barrage again is very nice here. Okay, drops the Immo first so that one shot of the Fel Barrage will just clear up and the rest will go face. You can then push more damage to face with the Fury. And then possibly glide the rest of this hand away, with the rest of this hand, I believe, just being the Jace at the end of this turn.
Yeah, basically traded that Immolation Aura for 4 damage to face, which is a trade I would take a lot of the time anyway.
Yeah. Well, he also traded it from for a different card from his deck as well, right? Because his intention was to glide at the end of the turn anyway. So in that case, dumping it makes a lot of sense.
Jace back as well. It's just a lot of damage, a lot of pressure, and Casie, his Giant's still only going to be at 4 mana at the moment. Does have a null, but again, because of the glide, very expensive. Gets hold of the touch, so he can kill off the Kurtrus, the main threat right now on board.
Yeah, picked up the Slingers as well off the Raised Dead, which enables him to take care of the board completely. Pick up a little bit of healing, but with double Fury already banked into the Jace pool, this should be more than enough to get Furyhunter over the line here.
Yeah, and more you start to see as we see just, you know, more games of this Fel Demon Hunter on stream. That a lot of the time, just the actual consistent pushing of damage works. It's like the combos are there, but it's not the key factor of the deck, right? You don't have to expendable combo someone to win a game with this deck, right?
Yep.
You can push enough damage, you've got your weapons, you've even got hero power, you've got just the normal, the hero Kurtrus hero power in general without the extra. That's still 1 mana deal too, at minimum. So yeah, it's kind of cool to see it just win out by just pushing tons of damage. And of course, as is often the case, good uses of Glide from Demon Hunter, that helps sometimes, I suppose.
It does indeed, yeah. But your point is a good one, and to the degree even that some people play versions of this deck that doesn't even have the Expendables package in it, right? And it's still just a very, very effective deck, much more akin to what the classic build of Fel Demon Hunter was in that position, even though it's lost the ability to just kind of throw a cheap Il'gynoth package in there because it's just too strong, because the nerfs to the Il'gynoth Moa kind of stuff has brought that far more in line with the rest of the stuff that Demon Hunter can be doing. So still a very flexible deck in terms of how to get there in terms of win condition. We've seen expendable performers wins. We've seen straight up just Jace plus Furies wins. And we've even seen Felkane having a good go at it with the Zai package as well, which did look like it was giving him at least outside chances in an otherwise unwinnable situation. So definitely a lot of different directions you can go with the deck.
I'm going to ask you a question, Sol, even though I know the answer.
Yes.
Are you a fan of speedruns?
Yes, I am, Raven.
I did know that.
I know.
Because this
is an entirely forced conversation for the purpose of the viewer at home. Did you notice?
I did, because I made it up. This next game feels like it might become one, because we have Casie on, again, this Garrote Rogue. If you can't remember what this deck does, it draws through the deck very quickly, and then combos with Garrote to end the game. I believe, if my information is correct, he's going to be going up against Furyhunter's Mozaki Mage, which also wants to draw a good portion of the deck, and also wants to just OTK their opponent effectively in one turn. So, you know, explain what you foresee from this matchup, Sol. If this is the case, I'm 99% sure it's the Mozaki Mage. So, like, is there an edge anywhere? Does one deck generally do better than the other at their game plan if left alone, which is kind of what they'll do to each other?
I will confess that I don't have a good read on the average turn Faceless Manipulator Rogue kills the opponent on.
I'll give you that. I'll let you off.
Yeah, I'm a little bit out of touch with how quickly that can get through. Obviously, it involves getting a lot of discounts onto Guild Trader and Faceless specifically, with the now massively decreased amount of damage that you do get coming from Garrotes. But, you know, a decent Mozaki Mage draw is generally looking at turn 7 or 8 to get there. And in terms of disruption, no, there's not a massive deal that the Mage can do to the Rogue to really slow them down. However, Casie does have the luxury of Cult Neophyte on his side, which can be a very, very big deal indeed, particularly if he's able to combine them with those Shadow Steps. However, now we get into nerfed Garrote damage world. Can Casie afford to use Shadow Steps on things that aren't spell damage over the course of the game and then actually get over the line? So it's an interesting one that I'm looking forward to seeing. My imagination tells me that the Mizaki Mage is probably just a turn or two faster on average, but I will happily confess that I am ready to sit and learn from Casie when it comes to Faceless Manipulator Garrote Rogue.
Yeah, and we've also seen very recently, as we talked about earlier, Furyhunter more than willing to think outside the box, especially with this deck as well. So maybe we're going to see a completely different style of play if either player's forced into it. Because again, there's the usual case with Garrote Rogue in the past where, yes, it has the combo at the end of the game, but a lot of the time you could win on board, right? I know maybe not the case of this specific matchup, but we saw different ways for Garrote Rogue to win that wasn't just, you know, stall, 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 and then combo.
That's fair.
Going for rigged fair game. It's pretty interesting. I was looking at the buff on the hero power, honestly. Just because it kills a lot of rogue minions, right? If they do come out now and again, say a Neophyte comes down, the hero power would just kill it.
I was definitely leaning towards the rigged choice there. It's just at some point, you know, your opponent's going to passage or something along those lines, right? And I think that is a big deal if they're going to just be in a position where that's probably then not going to lead to a bunch of damage to your face. Casie might choose to test it here with the remaining dagger swing, especially as he's now eliminating all the other potential secrets. But it looks like he has let it go, and it looks like this rigged fair game is going to go off. Yep, there it is. But the credit Fury gets from just playing a generated secret there is that the opponent then has to think about counterspell, mirror entity. It's like you have to, you get a lot of credit for all of the mage secrets as soon as you play one, because they are so kind of uniquely disruptive in each individual way. So I just really like the potential doubts that you put in Casey's mind, even though the speed he played the subsequent turn didn't really look like he had any doubt in what he was doing. I'm sure it was there.
Yeah, it's pretty. I feel like Mage is pretty unique, where I can't even instantly think of a secret that you think, oh, they're never gonna pick this secret. You know what I mean? Like, it's always possible. Whereas, like, for example, Hunter, in a lot of situations, you can have at least a decent guess at what they're gonna pick. So far, Furyhunter is just. I mean, both players, to be fair, equal on amount of cards left in deck. But to me, that favors the Mage, because the Mage needs to do less work to activate combo. Is that fair?
It definitely favors a Mage that already has Mizaki in hand and Flow played, right? Because, the Garrote Rogue actually has to race to the bottom of their deck, whereas Furyhunter just has to find enough stuff from his deck that actually counts to 30, which is usually some distance before you actually get right to the bottom.
Furyhunter pressing out a little bit by the looks of things.
Too quiet.
That's an upgrade. Probably.
All right, here comes the contact turn. Casie about to take an enormous lead in the card draw stakes, at least. There is his first access to Cult Neophyte this game, which could, of course, be a massive deal.
It's weirdly getting close, right? Because Furyhunter looks like... Well, let's see if the Neophyte comes down. I would expect it to. But it looks like Furyhunter's going to be pushed back by one turn, which is fine. But the response turn now from Casie with, what, 10 cards left, 9 on the draw in the deck? And he's seen multiple Octobots been played and, like, procced on the hand.
Yep.
You've got to be worried, right, if you're Fury.
Yes, you do, for sure.
Is he just going now because there wasn't a Neophyte played? Oh,
Looks
Casie
like he is. Casie does not believe it. Mouth open, eyes aghast. Siphon mana hits for 3, getting the full discount. That is a full 4 mana coming back from the Biscuit here. And that is 9 cards of juice, potentially, from that cram session, I believe, now, if he wants it.
And it's so insane. You don't often see the initial version of Biscuits being 0. to then double proc Mazaki for each one, right? That was absolutely huge.
8 cards, in fact. Yeah, can't truly get the Runed Orb out of his hand to make it the full 9. So yeah, that makes sense.
Was the Phoenix just a bait all along, Sol?
So
the Phoenix make him think you're gonna wait a turn and then just kill him.
We skipped this part because, yes, that was a very interesting dynamic going on there, because you said, I'm pretty sure the Neophyte will come down this turn. I didn't want to cut you off because you were mid-sentence. But I was going to counter that with, I don't think it is, because I think Casie will react to the Phoenix that's been put in play last turn and say, that's the turn I'm going to die, so I'll save this Neophyte for the turn the Phoenix is going to wake up. However, you are quite right to point out that because he did not do that, Furyhunter just went, oh, okay, fine, I'll kill you this turn then instead. Forget about my Phoenix. But yeah, again, you pointed out, Fury finished his turn and then got this stressed look on his face. I'm not sure that was his stressed face. I think that was his counting face. I think that's what he immediately started doing at the end of the following turn, which is absolutely the correct thing to do when you're playing Mazaki Mage. During your opponent's turn, just count a rough estimate of damage that you have in your hand. And I think Furyhunter decided that unless he absolutely bricked off an 8-card cram session, that was going to get there off the Siphon Mana, discounting the hand. So very, very nicely played for Furyhunter, going up now to a 2-1 lead in the series.
Yeah, it's looking good, isn't it? Furyhunter is going to be on this Owl Warlock, and again, I heard, I think it was at the end of the Asia Pacific broadcast that Gia and Derek were kind of talking that Owllock, at least in their show, did not appear to be doing so well. It looked like it was really struggling to like get wins under the belt, and maybe that'll be the case going forward, even though Owllock's gained the nulls and such as a bit of help in the recent builds. And maybe it is just a little bit weak now that there's more and more games and different builds and, on the board here, but I am excited to see if Furyhunter can pull this off, because I just think his confident play is just good to watch, right? Because yes, he played well with Mazaki Mage last weekend in the Masters Tour. Yes, he played well with it just then, but I feel like all his choices just look very confident, even though he looks like he is thinking a lot, which is fair, but just it doesn't look like there's any big missteps going on, right? Just clean, solid play, which honestly you'd expect from someone who, whenever you speak to them, they've, no matter what time or what day it is, oh yeah, I've just got off the back of playing a tournament. Like, it could be any time. It's
so small correction, Raven. Small correction.
Winning.
Got back from winning a tournament.
Sorry, yeah.
Yes, that's a very, very important distinction when it comes to a player like Furyhunter. But yeah, it's.
Oh, go on.
Go ahead.
Okay, I'll go.
Oh, you.
No, you go. No, I do think that did sort of play out how you estimated it would as well. If both decks are kind of going at the same pace, Mage does it quicker, right? And it was just that one turn quicker, and that's exactly what it felt like. So maybe that's not the case every time, but it looked like both players were having decent draws. The game was going pretty well for both players, but the Mage was just that one step ahead.
I do think now, although it's not the match we're going to see, the game we're going to see, if Casie can pick up the win here with the handlock, this is potentially now a position where Garrotrogue could still shine, because now Casie will have the ability to run his Garrotrogue, which, yes, is slower, into a Owl TK Warlock on the other side, which, for example, is a similar kind of deck to Handlock is, but does not play Cult Neophytes, which we know have ended up being so crucial in that matchup for so long, that the Garrotrogue might just be able to get there faster in the end. But we will see how this one plans out, because this is a very similar situation to what we talked before with the Fell Demon Hunter and the Handlock. It's big threats on one side, it's the threat of massive amounts of damage on the other, but repeated big threats one after the other from the Handlock side from Casie is something that Fury's not really equipped to deal with his removal package that he's gone for on the other.
Yeah, the OTK Warlock deck runs small removal that sometimes they can increase the damage of with Moags, right? But they don't run any sweeping big AoE. There's no like insta-kill like mechanic cards. I'll say Siphon Soul, but not that anyone's played that for a while. But there's no insta-kill cards or anything like that. So yeah, you're completely right. If like a chain of large minions are played from Casie, Fury will be struggling to keep up unless he's already so far ahead it doesn't matter. But again, to get there, he's going to have to get there.
And this is a good point to take note of already, because just then we saw Fury play a Blood Mage Thalnos for 2 mana instead of a Null for 2 mana, which was a point I was just about to make, is that when you talk about the lack of large removal in the deck, that new innovation of playing Goldshire Null, that can kind of function as a source of large removal, right? Suddenly Null plus Drain Soul kills an 8/8, which is something that you're very, very interested in doing. So I think Fury is looking to be as greedy as possible with the Nulls, to not just put them on board to be killed by removal spells and actually run them into big threats on his own terms himself.
Also important to note as well, Casie not running Viper in this deck. Either he's running the Showstopper, which you can argue is like the different card or the swap or whatever, but that's not going to
argue that Showstopper and Viper are different cards. Yes, you can. You could argue that very successfully.
Oh, there you go. But it does mean that Furyhunter doesn't have to worry about anything, right? It's your #1 priority with this deck is find the Ruined Rod and make it proc, right? That's it.
Yep.
And then everything else kind of fits into place after that. So he doesn't have to worry about weapon removal. But Casie does have to worry about piling enough pressure to make Fury not be able to just freely draw cards as and when he wants.
Comes Neophyte number 1. Ghoul Spirits is looking rather juicy on this board state, it has to be said.
That's what I was going to say. No big threats is the problem. If Null is your big threat, you've got issues, right? Because it's very, very clearable.
You here for the tour?
Okay, that's all.
The Tamsin draw.
That was definitely a noise.
Oh, the Tamsin draw, Raven.
I think he commits the... I mean, well, let's see what he draws first, of course, but I think he just... Oh, never mind. There's a touch. Let's look at whether he commits one of the Grimoires to kill this off, because I don't think he wants to take 5, honestly, or leave this Null up.
Yeah,
He can just use
agreed.
touch now, no problem at all.
Yeah, he had a lot of good draws, and he had the 1 mana allocated as well, which was smart, 'cause of course he'll draw a 1 mana spell and get discounted to 0, but there is still a Neophyte Aura in play right now, so it'll end up costing 1 at the end of it all. But as long as he was going to pick up a small removal there, he would have been fine. Could have been Coil, could have been Touch, either would have done fine, so he had pretty high odds of finding a clean answer.
The only awkward thing, even if you want to say it's awkward, is Furyhunter's not like got hold of the minion Tamsin,
Yes.
or the like mainly most of the combo pieces, honestly.
Very true.
You still need to get this owl down, but again, you can actually do the whole combo in 1 turn if you've had enough reductions, right? So that's also not a complete end of the world.
And also, once you have a double discounted owl or a triple discounted owl, like when a generally cheap owl, it's actually not that low a tempo turn to play it anymore, because you just do this kind of thing, right? And it helps you clear the board in the same turn because it's so cheap you can weave it in. So getting the owl played once you've hit it with the rod a couple of times is not a bigger deal, not as big a deal as it is if it's you having to pay full cost for it.
Also, nice little play there. It's not the biggest thing in the world, but I think some people would have like done the trade and the coil first and tried to like snipe with the owl on the giant, but this just gave Furyhunter multiple chances at hitting an actual minion, and the trades could still happen for him. He could still clear the board, but it gave him more chances of the owl not hitting face, right?
Indeed. Wicked Shipment in hand. I believe the left one is upgraded already. I think that is a 4 imper on the left. Yes, it is.
Now, it doesn't... Tamsin's a solid clear here. The problem with other AoE is I don't think Casie wants to go down to like barely any cards, right? I think he'll want to try and keep them or keep hold of them. Unless he just says, who cares? And then this is his last big board, right? Wouldn't actually hate it the more I stare at it. If he just Soul Rends and then plays like Giant Scavenger.
Well, he can do all that with Tamsin anyway, right? So there's not much reason to delete your deck at the same time.
You get more on... Oh, I guess you can't get more on board, right? I think I might have been imagining an additional minion in hand.
Burns a Rift and a Neophyte, not a huge deal, I suppose. Still no Phylactery, still no Tammy 1 for Furyhunter right now.
An absolute ton of damage on Casey's side, especially when we can see the Battlemaster, of course.
Yep.
Oh.
Okay. That is 4 imps that he has on the left. But there's just so much board presence on the other side.
Yeah, the School Spirits will kill off the 2-1.
Yes.
Can he do anything with a Moarg to be able to help with? He could Moarg. But he used the 0 mana Grimoire if he wanted to try and do that. Okay, looks like he's just going to clean this up and not die. This seems like a much more reasonable play than trying to find some kind of... I think there might have been something that gave him a chance there, but I think for where he's ended up this turn, if he just kills off the big threats, this is fine.
Yeah. The problem is, like, once he plays... like, Moarg and Phylactery was his entire mana, basically, that turn, right? He couldn't really fit anything else in alongside that. So I don't think it was ever going to quite get there for a secure enough chance at lethal, especially in a game where he probably doesn't feel like he has to take any kind of, like, 50-50 lethal situation, right? Like, he probably feels more comfortable than that in his game position. So he's just going to use the Moarg to clear up instead. Just wait for Tammy 1 to graciously appear in the hand. Any extra minion that comes along in the meantime is, of course, a bonus.
And now
we're getting closer, right?
Yeah, because he can School Spirits once. He obviously needs to kill off that showstopper before anything goes wrong. But now, with imps...
Shipment, Phylactery, School Spirit. Yep. Chilling.
Even had spare mana to drain Soul something if he really needed to. And yeah, that was just so close for so long, but Furyhunter kept his cool.
I saw the blood, because he picked Owl so quickly, I saw the Blood Mage appear on screen and was like, wait, what? Has he picked Blood Mage? But no, Fury way too smart.
I really want to draw Tamsin. Oh, wait.
Clutches it up in the end. Very, very nicely played game of Owl Warlock in the end. Those nulls, again, showing their worth, right? I highlighted it at the start. Without those nulls, you don't really have a way to respond to 6, 7, 8 health minions on the other side of the board. And particularly when you get up to 8, because Moarg Drain Soul can do little bits and pieces, Moarg Grimoire, Moarg School Spirits can do little bits and pieces. But once they start getting up to giant size, you are usually in trouble. But there you go, perfectly highlighted. Those nulls, which he didn't play as threats in the early game, he held onto them as removal pieces very intelligently. And then in the end, spotting the cute lethal without never, ever, ever, ever needing access to Tammy 1.
Yeah, and before this build of the deck really started to become popular, like I'm talking a while back now, I've lost this matchup as the OTK because my opponent played an early giant. Like a giant. And my draw wasn't great as I didn't have stacked removal, and I just died. Because that's
followed by a Battle Master.
Yeah, I just died. I was like, oh, okay. But anyway, as we check out how Group C has rounded out so far, Superfake, one of our new Grandmasters, of course, winning out the group. So we'll see him on stream for the first time tomorrow. But one of our other new Grandmasters, Subtle Furyhunter, yes, not the perfect start to his first week. He didn't 2-0 out of the group, but most importantly, Sol, he got out of his group. And once you're out, your previous records don't matter, right? It's single him all the way from there.
Yeah, they only matter when we and Lorinda start talking about your overall win rates and those graphics that start come up. And trust me, Fury will care about that stuff. I promise you. So yeah, I think he'll be looking for every single victory that he can pick up. But once again, just giving you guys the hook, you want to watch Superfake's decks when they come into play tomorrow because, oh my